and everything college and high school sports. Now, let's join Andy, Brett, Randy, and Luke for this edition of Sports Blitz Live.
Well, seeing how you're on Sports Blitz Saturday Sports Countdown more than anybody else, do you think we should at least include your name on the intro, Scott?
You know, I think that's just become part of the show's background. Is that, you know, I'm here and not necessarily audible on the intro, but that's how it goes.
So we shall get that changed. I'm Randy Lee alongside Scott Hardy this morning. We'll be here with you until 9 o'clock. Love to hear from you, 256-234-6221. Plenty going on in the world of college athletics right now when you're talking about College World Series going on. Luckily for us, as two Auburn fans, we've got a team of interest to cheer for tonight. The SEC got off, started last night with 4 teams in this tournament out of the 8. Scott, not much you can say, not much you can complain about as an Auburn athletics fan. If you want to complain about football, you can argue them down that you just kind of need to hold up a little bit and give the man some time. But the rest of the athletic program at Auburn pretty strong right now.
Yeah, I mean, truthfully, this may be the best it's been ever. I mean, across the board. And obviously, you know, people get distracted by the lack of success or recent success of the football team. But overall, I mean, basketball continues to do what it's doing. 2 out of the last 4 years, Butch Thompson has his guys in the College World Series. Gymnastics has been doing their thing. Equestrian continues to do its thing. So, I mean, as a whole, the athletic department really is doing the best, I think, success-wise in the history of the program.
Alan Green deserves a lot of credit right now. You know, it's easy to throw darts when football season comes around and we're struggling and we lose a bunch of games in a row, and you point and you say, well, he chose Brian Harsin and maybe he went in a different direction than a lot of the Board of Trustees wanted him to go. Who knows? That's just hearsay that there's nothing direct from both of us. But, you know, when you look at the rest of these programs and you see the type of success that we're having and you see the way that I think that we handle ourselves as well, you know, I think there's something to be said for that. As watching what Tennessee just pulled off in baseball all year, I'm not sure anyone outside of Tennessee wants to associate their name with the way that they kind of handle themselves. And you see that's the reason that the majority of the rest of the country got against them. They became the villain. And maybe they liked that, but it didn't work out well for them. And it's kind of like the Miami teams back in the 90s and the early 2000s before they cleaned things up. But those Miami teams won a whole bunch of national championships. So they have something to hang their hat on. Tennessee didn't get there this year. But back to my point is, you know, I do think that our athletic programs handle themselves in a manner in which, you know, we can all be proud of.
Oh, absolutely. And that is something that when you're looking at prospective recruits or bringing in a new coach to the staff, I think the one thing that you can always hang your hat on as a program with Auburn is, one, you're going to have immense fan support, and the experience that the kids get while they're on campus, I think is bar none one of the best in the country. So I think it's embedded in the culture of the program and the type of people. I hate saying type of people, but there is a cultural difference, I think, between Auburn and some other programs, and I know that applies to other universities as well. But if you just look at the following of the success of these programs, it doesn't matter what sport it is. You can't say that for every program, but when it comes to Auburn, if you are putting out a quality product on the court or field, you're going to get true support from the fan base.
256-234-6221 is our phone number. We've been here with you for 15-plus years on Saturday morning, talking about whatever's going on in the world of sports. The one thing that I think is the major topic around the country right now is Golden State and their ability to win another championship, minus Kevin Durant. Steph Curry, who a lot of people pointed to with Klay Thompson's injury, and would he be able to come back and play the way that we had seen him before. No, I don't think he's been able to come all the way back, but he's still an important piece to that whole process. But the thing that I'll point to you, and we'll kick off the program with this morning, is as Steph Curry continues to shoot the ball and score the ball the way that he does and play with the flair that he plays with, How high on this list of all-time players can this guy go with 4 NBA titles, one now NBA Finals MVP? How many MVPs, regular season MVPs? Got 2 MVPs. This guy's I don't know. I'll start with you. Your thoughts, because it is a major conversation that's going on, and he's as special as we've seen since Jordan and Kobe in my book. And Jordan and Kobe are top 5 players. I don't know that anybody really doubts that anymore. But Steph Curry's inching up the list. LeBron too, of course. But I'm talking about, that there aren't a number of other players that are playing right now that I would point to other than LeBron and Steph Curry.
Yeah, and, when you start looking at all-time greats, especially when it comes to the point guard position, I think Magic is still number 1. And then I think it becomes a toss-up between Steph Curry and Isaiah Thomas. The rings obviously have been eclipsed 4-2 as it relates to the Pistons and the Warriors, but I don't see anybody else outside of probably Jordan who has impacted the game or influenced the game the same way that Steph has. Now it is a game where you don't have to be 7 feet tall to be successful, and your body frame doesn't have to be just muscle or anything like that. If you've got a good skill set, which shooting obviously is one of the more important aspects of the game. If you've got somebody who can shoot, you can have a 15-year career in the NBA, and we're seeing it more and more now. So if you go to these AAU games or camps or even regular season high school games, the range of these players are getting further and further back, and that's a reflection of what Steph Curry's been able to do. Now, when you're talking about all-time greats, not necessarily talking about a position, I still have somewhat of reservations elevating him above certain players, but 4 rings is 4 rings, and he's won as many with Kevin Durant as he has without him. So now he's got 2 without him, has that elusive NBA Finals MVP. But for me, when it first happened, I said Magic, Isaiah, and Steph. But having some time to think about it, he probably has elevated himself above Isaiah Thomas.
A couple other point guards that I'll throw in there. First off, I love Isaiah. You know that. I'd defend him over just about anyone when it comes to that position. A couple of players that come to mind that they just didn't win championships, and it's going to be a hindrance on the way that people look at them is John Stockton and Jason Kidd. Kidd, I think, is second all-time to Stockton in assists. Kidd played great defense. He did a little bit of everything. He didn't score extremely well, but everything else he did off the charts, and Stockton was there. He just couldn't get over the hump. They had a great team with Malone and that whole crew, Hornacek, and keep going down the list of guys that were really good on those Jazz teams, but they couldn't get over the hump. And so that's going to hinder the way that you look at his career. And, even going back before then, I don't think that you're going to come up with names with Cousy and some of those others that it's just hard to look at those generations and say how would their game, play in today's game. I do think that the bigs back then would be would play extremely well in today's game. There's no doubt in my mind that Russell and Chamberlain and Jabbar and all those guys would be maybe even better today than they were then because their inside presence, the way they ran the court. There was a lot of fast breaking then too, and defensive presence and shot blocking. I don't know that anybody did it better than Russell. But from a point guard standpoint, there is no longer a true point.
That was what I was going to get to too. Like Steph is labeled as a point guard, but he's not really a point. He's more of a shooting guard. I mean, Draymond probably does more facilitating of the offense than he does. So, we're getting closer and closer to seeing positionless basketball. I think we're getting to that point. But somebody we left off and who is probably my favorite point guard, true point guard, is Chris Paul. And he just hasn't been able to win a championship, but pound for pound, he's probably the best in terms of numbers and the things he's been able to accomplish. He just hasn't been able to get a ring. And, and Allen Iverson, I don't know if you would label him as a 1 or a 2, but it is fun to reflect back on the eras and who could play with who. But somebody like Pistol Pete, I think, could definitely play.
Oh, yeah.
In this era.
Played the same type of game and really wanted, to showcase his skills and get out. And you can watch some of his, not just his LSU games, but you can watch some of his pro games. I've gone back to watch a few of his pro games, and, man, his ball handling ability and the things that he did with the ball were exceptional back then. And if they would have had a three-point arc at LSU when he played there and averaged 44 a game, there's no telling what he would have scored because he was shooting the same as you see Steph. But it's still a great conversation. It's fun when you watch. You're seeing greatness in Steph Curry right now, and I don't think anybody denies that. Anybody that wants to argue that, I think, is slowly starting to get off that bus, Scott, because his greatness is undeniable.
Do you think – so for as much as I think we both mutually think that the impact he's had on the game has been good, do you think that this style of play hurts the game any by, taking these, I'm going to say half-court shots, but 40 feet out? Like, is that something that hurts the game? No,
I don't think it hurts it at all as long as you can make them at a decent percentage. If you don't make at a 40% clip 30-foot shots, then you shouldn't be shooting 30-foot shots. But a lot of these guys make it at that clip. They don't make it at the clip that you say Steph Curry does, and I'm sure a lot of the younger guys definitely don't. But that's something coaches have to work through. And, you and I watch a lot of high school basketball, and I love it. And I'll probably be watching a whole lot more of it in the years to come. And, I'll say this as somebody that like to shoot, and you as well, I'd like to play for somebody that gave me the freedom to do that. And I think the game has changed to a point to where coaches are willing to say, you have proven that you can knock these shots down. I'm no longer going to just jerk you out when you put one up like that. Now, I'm sure that there are some that after a while and you're 0 for 6 and you've slung some up that most of us wouldn't, that they would. But, I'll stay right here in our local community with your uncle. There's some shots that are put up in their games that I think back to his coach and my coach, Coach Carney, in high school. And there's no doubt what part of the bench you would have been on if you'd have shot any of those shots. I see Chris Foster taking some sometimes. But the thing about, and I bring up Chris because he knocks them down at a pretty good clip. So it's like, am I going to take that out of his game? No, I don't think that you should. And Steph Curry has changed that whole process a whole lot, Scott, from say 30 years ago.
Yeah, I think what you talk about is the freedom, and I think that if you having that freedom, I think increases confidence, and so you're not as concerned about making or missing. If it's a good shot, I'm going to take it because I'm not worried about coming out. And I can visualize Coach Carney and more so Coach Hicks when I was coming through. These shots would have landed you on the bench.
Yeah,
sure.
Well, they definitely would have, but the thing is the other coaches on the opposing teams felt the same. It was just a mentality. It's kind of like watching high school football these days and you see a 44-42 game, and it's no longer a surprise to see that when these big schools, whereas, 25 years ago that game would have been 14-12 because people played the slow-down version of the game, and they played a little mental game with one another, and if they could run 7 minutes off the clock on this possession, that was what was going to be decided. It was just totally different. So it's hard to compare generations, but I will say this version of basketball is more fun to watch.
I agree. It gets the average – what it has done is taken athletes who may not be – or taken players who may not be as athletic – and you can carve out a role now. Like if you can shoot, and I've seen it the last 4 or 5 years just following Ben Russell basketball. A couple guys who weren't that athletic, but you could put them in the corner somewhere, and they can get you 3 or 4 shots a game, and that's important now over the course of a game. If you've got a couple of guys who can get you 6-9 points apiece, then you're going to start seeing some higher scoring games and ultimately more wins.
It's the reason I love the up and down version and the wholesale substitution version of high school basketball here in the state so much. It's when you got 12 or 14 players that feel like they're going to play major important minutes, the team concept changes, And when you're playing, like, I think that the thing that has really transitioned, it hasn't transitioned to the NBA game or the college game quite as much as you see in the high school game, because I think you can pull it off at the younger ages, but is the full court defense. Name a game you and I saw in the finals last year where a team in this state was winning playing drop back zone defense. They do not win in this state anymore doing that, and it is just chaos, complete and total chaos. That was actually the slogan of the Coleman team, is just to create as much chaos as we possibly can create. And Scott, if you're an athlete, and most of the times you're best athletes, I don't want to pick the sport, but I think basketball has the best athletes. Is that fair to say?
I think so.
I think they have the best athletes. Now, they play other sports too, but I think it's so hard. But if you allow athletes, your father-in-law used to say this, and I appreciated when he said it. Man, I am not going to coach these boys and not let these athletes be athletes and play. And I appreciate that. And I think that's what you're seeing in the high school game these days is like, man, let them get out there and get after it. And let's put them in some kind of position where they can be successful. But I'm not dropping back in a 2-3 zone and nobody shoot the dadburn ball for 6 minutes and run the clock down, those old North Carolina Dean Smith teams where you had the four corners. We're not doing that anymore, and I'm glad that we've transitioned away, and I think Steph Curry's got a lot to do with it. Yes, I do. We're up against our first break here on the Saturday Sports Countdown.
Farmers and Merchants Bank of Dadeville is building a foundation of strength and trust in the entire Lake Martin community. With our modern branch in Dadeville and caring, attentive staff, we've established Farmers and Merchants Bank as a reliable friend to your banking needs. Whether it's just a savings or checking account or any commercial, auto, or real estate loan, Farmers has local decision-making to build a relationship with you and your needs. Farmers and Merchants Community Bank. Strength, service, community.
What's the verdict?
Can't fix your heat pump. Need a new one.
Uh-oh. What are you thinking?
I'm thinking Daikin.
Call on Kevin Kill and Sunshine Heating and Air at 256-825-4849, Central Alabama's premier Daikin dealer.
So what's he thinking?
Oh, he's thinking Daikin.
Daikin, one of the top selling in the world.
Now I'm thinking Daikin.
Daikin. Comfort for life.
Russell Do-It Center and building supply stores have the tools and materials to get the job done right, whether you're a professional contractor or just a weekend do-it-yourselfer. With everyday customer conveniences like a drive-through lumberyard, price match promise, and our Best Rewards program, each of our 9 locations offer top brands and building materials like lumber, hardware, tools, paint, lawn and garden, and much more. Visit today and see what Russell Do-It Center and Building Supply can help you build tomorrow.
You want the best opportunity to be successful in life. You deserve that opportunity. Well, you just happens to be in our motto. Central to you, central to your success. Your future is right now. Don't wait. Make your dreams a reality by enrolling at Central Alabama Community College. Register today at cacc.edu.
Don't be caught in a dirty vehicle. Lake Martin Mobile Detailing will have your vehicle or boat looking like brand new in no time, and you'll be back driving in style. They specialize in detailing, paint correction, gel coat restoration, and ceramic coating. Take it to the professionals at Lake Martin Mobile Detailing. Call them today at 256-794-2328 or stop by and see them at 702 McCarty Road in Dadeville. Mention this ad and receive $10 off. Lake Martin Mobile Detailing for your cleanest vehicles around.
Skag, the toughest name in lawnmowers. Unmatched quality and performance for over 3 decades. The clear choice, the best mower money can buy for work or at home. Top lawn care professionals and discerning homeowners know that Skag means productivity and reliability. Every Skag mower is proudly built right here in the USA. Don't settle for anything less than simply the best. Skag.
Satterfield Outdoor Living on Highway 280 in Alex City.
College World Series got started last night. It really starts for us Auburn fans tonight, Scott. Big game against Ole Miss. Ole Miss started the season #1 in the country. It tells you what type of talent and expectations they had coming into the season. Really, it's become expectations for the state of Mississippi every year with Ole Miss and Mississippi State, Southern Miss now being one of the top programs in the country. So I don't know that, now when you watch going into the tournament that Ole Miss was one of the last teams to get in. A lot of people here in this state, Alabama fans, pointed to a lot of reasons that Alabama should have been in the tournament instead of Ole Miss, but Ole Miss gets the nod, and they've been pretty smooth getting through the tournament so far. So not sure about the matchup. Your thoughts on it, Scott?
Well, I think that there's some advantages to playing a team that you've already seen before, and that goes for both sides. But I think from a momentum standpoint, Auburn's pretty hot. I mean, and they struggled a little bit coming into it, but once the regional happened, I mean, you look at the amount of runs that have been put up and the timely hitting, the clutch pitching that's taking place, especially at the tail end of games. I mean, those are combinations for long runs especially in a baseball setting where you're going to have to put up runs, especially in Omaha. And I think that Auburn's lineup is very capable of scoring 8, 10, 12 runs and really applying pressure to Ole Miss. But I think it's going to be a challenge. I do. Ole Miss is very, very hot, and they're one of those teams that, Luke would talk about on the basketball side is, they didn't really deserve to get in, but once they get in, it shows you how a tournament setting allows teams like that to have success.
Auburn needs their starting pitching to be stellar. We did not get that in the Super Regionals. Gonzalez was decent. He had his moments. I think he got maybe close to 5 innings in. I'm going off memory here, so I'm sorry if I'm missing an out or two. Trace Bright did not have one of his better games, and that hasn't been the norm this year. So hopefully we'll get him back and throwing well. But, starting pitching is where I will start with setting this thing up, Scott. Getting deeper into the 6th, 7th inning maybe with a guy or two is going to be important because these are long tournaments, and these arms are going to be stretched. And I would much rather see Burkhalter in the 9th rather than having to come in and finish games in the 8th and the 9th like we got him in the final game against Oregon State. I think he's on an upswing, but getting these starting pitching deeper into the game is going to be important.
Yeah, and that was the point I was going to make. For as great as he is and finishing out games, you don't want him to have to consistently be getting 7, 8, 9 outs to close out a game. I mean, really, and my wife and I were talking about it. She was asking about why did it matter that he came in. So you really don't want your closer having to get more than 4 or 5 outs. It's a little different in college, but, I mean, you don't want more than 2 innings is pretty tough. And so, I mean, it puts a lot of pressure on it. But you open the show talking about the amount of SEC teams that have made it to Omaha. And then you also include future teams, Texas and Oklahoma, too. So, I mean, more than half of the teams will be from eventual SEC teams. So it shows the caliber of program or conference that we currently have and what the conference will be getting with the addition of Oklahoma and Texas.
Here's the starting pitching against Oregon State, just to give you some innings that Auburn ate up there. Trace Bright didn't even get out of the first. You look at Gonzalez, who is 7-3 on the season, got 5 innings in. I was on that one, and Mason Barnett into the 5th. So he had a little over 4 innings, and he threw the ball well. He had 5 strikeouts there in the game, and he has dominant stuff. So this pitching staff have explosive arms, and we've got a number of explosive arms, and I think we're going to hit the ball. I do. I think Sonny D and the rest of the group, I think even there's a potential that if he keeps getting a hot bat, there's some bats that didn't swing it really well in the Super Regionals that can heat back up, and I think that they will. It's all about the pitching for me. I think we'll do a decent enough job to give ourselves a chance swinging the bats. Boy, that's nice to say because that has been our issue for quite some time, really back to 2010, I would guess.
Yeah, I mean, it's been pretty much a consistent theme all year, but when the regional happened and to see the amount of runs that were taking place, I mean, it'll offset if you're having a subpar pitching performance, and so it doesn't hurt you as badly. But Auburn's been able to jump out pretty quickly in a lot of these games, and I think that's going to be very important against Ole Miss. Is if you could get out, 2 or 3 runs early on and really apply some pressure, I think that bodes well for the success of what's going to happen going down the line. But I think all of this really should start the conversation of solidifying Butch Thompson as our guy. The same way that Bruce Pearl got his long-term extension, I think it's time to start having that same conversation.
Agree.
With Butch.
I totally agree. I think that some of the changes that may be coming down the line when it comes to recruiting and NIL and coaches that you can have on staff that can be paid, that's only going to help Auburn, I think, maybe more than our opposition here locally in the SEC and our bordering states, especially when it comes to lottery and players that you can put on different type of scholarships. But from Auburn's standpoint, all of those negative thoughts that we had over the years about why we can't be competitive has been negated by Butch Thompson and him making it to College World Series a couple of times within the last 3 years. And he deserves whatever it is that we can give here at Auburn. And I think everyone loves – here's the thing I like about Butch Thompson. When the mic's in front of him, he turns it on. He's got Southern charm coming out of every pore. And I watch some of those other guys talk, and I'm like, man, I'm sure glad they're not my coach. They're not good coaches. They just don't handle themselves the way that I like. And you don't have to be a Southerner to have that. Bruce Pearl's got it. I mean, he's got it in abundance. He's got it as much as anybody we've ever had at Auburn. But it was one part of watching the super regionals and watching when they interview these coaches in the middle of the game and seeing his demeanor and the way that he carries himself, Scott. And he's just such a likable, cool individual, it feels like.
Yeah, he doesn't have the aggressiveness. I don't mean this in a negative way.
No, I know
he's
what you're
not as
saying.
aggressive maybe as Bruce Pearl, but when he speaks, the content of what he's saying lets you know how serious he is about having success at Auburn.
Yes.
And doing whatever is going to be necessary. And I loved what he had to say earlier in the week. He's like, at some point, if you keep just saying, oh, we got to get to Omaha, okay, that's fine, but to really get the program to where we want, we have to start thinking we're going to win. And so I love that type of confidence, and it shows not only the current players and current supporters of the team, shows future prospects, hey, Auburn is here to be competitive, and they're going to do everything necessary to make sure that takes place, especially with Butch at the ring.
And I've said this before, and I'll say it again. There aren't many communities in our state, regions in our state, that's as baseball obsessed as that one over there. It is, and I think that's important, Scott. That is an area with Columbus, Phoenix City, Auburn-Opelika area that does it as well as anyone, wins as much as anyone, and has been passionate about that sport for my entire life. And it is now moved into the high school game over the last 15 to 20 years, where Phoenix City and Auburn are as good as we have here in this state. And I do think that's important. And the reason I say that is because they are within a 30-minute stretch of showing up at Plainsman Park over and over and over again to support a program and to support a sport that is their favorite over in that region. Not to negate any of the others, but I do think that they have taken that sport to a different level even compared to some of the others. And I think that bodes well for what could be built over there in the state. And it's already built. I know, but I think Auburn baseball could be what Mississippi State baseball is. If it's marketed and advertised and pushed the way that Butch Thompson has it moving, I really think, and gosh, that would be something, wouldn't it?
I think it's very likely that Auburn has a chance to become one of the top-tier teams in the conference as it relates to baseball, and we keep talking about it, but, I mean, the NIL probably impacts Auburn baseball more than it impacts any of the other sports we have because it's been a successful program as is. But now when you're able to facilitate structuring of scholarships and redistributing some of this money out, I think it only is going to help, one, retain players or either keep players that maybe would say, you know what, I'm just going to go to JUCO and get my year in, then I'm going to go to try to see if I can get drafted, or I'm going to go straight to the draft. Well, now if there's some compensation on the table, then it's going to allow them to go after some guys that normally may not have been interested in Auburn because the scholarship limitations were there in place.
256-234-6221, just getting started here on the Saturday Sports Countdown. Love to hear from you.
Growing your business isn't just one thing. It's a million little things. Should you lease, rent, or own? How fast can you get that part? Does it fit the budget? That's what your local cat dealer is here for. With expert advice, flexible financing, and industry-leading equipment, you can get the job done day after day. Visit ThompsonCat.com, your compact equipment provider.
WOTM is the television provider for all Alabama High School Athletic Association championship events and special programs. WOTM is your home for the Super 7 football, state finals basketball, baseball and softball state championships, the AHSAA weekly show, and WOTM also produced the first ever football playoff show, Super 7 preview show, and reclassification reveal show. Your exclusive home for all things AHSAA is WOTM. Contact your local cable provider to request WOTM to your channel lineup.
You want the best opportunity to be successful in life. You deserve that opportunity. Well, you just happens to be in our motto, central to you, central to your success. Your future is right now. Don't wait. Make your dreams a reality by enrolling at Central Alabama Community College. Register today at cacc.edu.
Alex City Internal Medicine and Nephrology and Weight Loss Center provides optimum care for the whole person. Dr. Dimo Popov specializes in the prevention and diagnosis of high blood pressure, kidney disease, diabetes, and acute and chronic conditions. Our weight loss clinic offers lipo shots and a guide to healthy weight loss. Alex City Internal Medicine and Nephrology and Weight Loss Center, where lifestyle changes are made.
When the Lake Martin area wants country, it turns to Kalijah Country 97.5. Lake Martin's best country.
Goes like 1 margarita, 2 margarita, 3 margarita shot. And if the house just keeps on winning, I got a wild card up my sleeve. I wish grandpa's never died.
Lake Martin's best country is on Kalijah Country 97.5.
For more than 40 years, Ingram Equipment Company has helped companies, towns, and cities with their dirtiest, most challenging jobs by providing the very best equipment and by helping them keep in tip-top working condition. IEC represents leading manufacturers such as Heil garbage truck bodies, Timco sweepers, Step pothole patchers, and many more. We proudly support all athletes and teams that compete across the state and wish them good luck this year. Ingram Equipment Company, ingramequipment.net.
Welcome back into the Sports Blitz Saturday Sports Countdown, 256-234-6221. Scott, you brought up something in the previous segment that I thought we'd hit on a little bit more here. Scholarship limitations in football changing. No longer 25 scholarships a year. You can go for what you need, I believe. And it looks like Auburn, for one, who's, Alabama won't be able to do this. And we'll talk about both of those teams. But Auburn could sign up 30, 31, 32 players this year just to fill in some gaps. That's good for this state. It's good for high school kids, probably really good for the transfer portal to have a chance to show up and fill in some of those gaps. But it's a need thing, I believe, if you're going to open up just free-willing transfer wherever you want, one good time. If you're going to do that, you got to give these schools that lose a lot of kids a chance to fill in those gaps, correct?
Yeah, and that's, I think, the best correlation between what you're talking about is, all right, the transfer portal, I think, has really changed the game more than anything, whether it be NIL, whether it be the scholarship limitation, whatever it may be. The transfer portal has forced people's hands. So not only are you having to recruit guys to come to your school, now you have to put on a full-blown sales job for the players you currently have. So opening that up, that window to have some additional players, especially with Auburn for the amount of players that they lost last season, having the chance to sign 31 kids would be phenomenal. And getting some of those guys out of the transfer portal means that you don't have to necessarily, if you miss out on a couple of these high school guys, it's not the end of the world.
Well, and when you look at the depth of certain positions at Auburn, I mean, one that is glaring to you is we may be okay on the offensive line this year, but past this year, we're in a lot of trouble. A lot of elder statesmen that have played a lot of football there at Auburn. Some can argue that some of the football that's been played on that line hasn't been all that good, but nonetheless, they still are getting minutes and getting time. Auburn's going to have to fill a lot of gaps on the offensive line, and that could be at the transfer. Hopefully we'll be semi at the high school ranks as well, that we'll be able to go out and finally pick up some tackles that we haven't really done a good job of since Gus Malzahn entered Auburn. But, yes, Scott, I think that this is good for us right now. I don't know how good it is for some of the other programs in the SEC, but for us, lacking just quality depth, it's a needed change, and I bet we're not the only one that's struggling with this.
Yeah, and it's really affecting your – I'm going to say your mid-level teams like a Arkansas. Well, they're not. I'll say they're mid-level. Arkansas, Mississippi State, those teams where you're getting – I mean, you know, your starters are as good as the rest of the teams in the SEC. It's the depth positions where you struggle. And so if you lose any of the starters to anything, now you have a little problem because your third-string guy or your second-string guy can't play at Alabama. The second-string guy at Alabama can play anywhere. And so I think you're going to see that's going to impact the rosters and the type of success you have of your mid-level teams. And Auburn is not a mid-level team. I don't want to say that. But if things don't change quickly, they could become that because A&M's not going anywhere. LSU's going to be good under Brian Kelly. Florida is going to be good with Napier. I mean, these teams are not going anywhere, and Auburn has to do things a little more strategically, I think, in comparison to others. But to your original point, I think that this will do great for Coach Harsin, who I will say, despite the negativity that he received early on during the recruiting cycle, I think they're doing their very best to change that perception of how committed they are to bringing in the best players to Auburn.
And it's tough. We started behind. I think we have gone out and gotten some old Auburn guys to become involved that seem to be good recruiters and seem to be at least swaying thoughts on where these players will go. A number of visitors are in this weekend. Edge Gabriel Harris from Valdosta, Georgia, currently a Georgia commit. 4-star, the 138th player in the country. Ranked player in the country is in Auburn this weekend. Anthony James from Wiley, Texas, a 4-star defensive lineman, 184th ranked player in the country. He is an A&M decommit. If you look down this list of players, Auburn's got about 9 or 10 players in this weekend. The issue that you're seeing with Auburn is not that we're not getting 3-4-star guys. We're getting those type of guys. The problem is the top 10, including the top 5, where 3 of the top 5 are from the SEC. They're getting top 200 players consistently, top 100 players consistently. You look down this list, the highest ranked player that Auburn's got visiting this weekend, that's a good ranking, but is the 138th ranked player in the country. It's hard to compete when you're not getting your fair share of the top tier guys, and maybe that will change, and maybe it's going to take wins to change that perception. But it's where Harsin and this crew's got to get to at Auburn, and it's where we've always been at Auburn. I've never watched Auburn growing up and thought we're way behind from a talent standpoint up to the last, say, 10 years. Would you agree with that?
I agree. And on the surface, you have a class that finishes 13th, 14th one year. You say, it's not that bad. Then you follow it up with another 12, 13. It's not, we're all right. Then you finish 20th. All right, well, now you've set the stage for what's going to happen the next 3 or 4 years. And so that's where Auburn is now, is that these subpar recruiting classes are now starting to be the players that we're going to rely on. And it's, you can talk about development and, if you come to Auburn, we'll make a man out of you. None of that stuff matters anymore. Just being frank, nobody is choosing a school now simply because a coach, they like the coach or they like the team. There's a lot of other factors involved now, and if you're a school like Auburn, you have to fight even more because you're competing. Your two biggest competitors are the two top programs in the country, and then your other rivals are still, A&M finishes with the top recruiting class. LSU's 2 years removed from a national championship. So Auburn has to do things a little differently than others. But to your point, yeah, I think Auburn is very talented or has been very talented in years before, but some of these subpar recruiting classes are now starting to be more visible on the field.
Well, I think the rich are getting richer and more richer than they've ever been in my life. The top 3 recruiting classes are getting 3 times the amount of top-tier players as the 10th ranked class. I think we did those numbers. These were top 300 guys on ESPN a couple of years ago. Alabama signed 27. 25 of them were top 300 guys. Auburn, I think, finished 10th. This is one of Gus Malzahn's maybe next to last year's that mentally I'm thinking about. And we finished 10th in recruiting, which was very, very solid, and we had 10 top 300 guys. I'm not saying that that's bad, but Alabama got 2.5 times more. So those top few classes are getting so much that they don't feel the guys that leave the program before they have a lot of success. They just don't feel the issue as much as some of us that really lean heavily on the Tank Bigsby and those that we do get. Owen Papos, who I think is the lone 5-star, you just can't miss because you don't have the quality depth. Now, you can miss a little bit more than you could in years past because you can go out on the transfer portal and hopefully pick up a guy that's had success at a smaller school or some other school like that. And maybe that's part of what we're going to have to do in the short term. But nonetheless, it's good to see that they changed that number from 25 plus, and hopefully that'll close in a gap, especially on the offensive front where it looks like we're going to need to add 7-8 guys here during this stretch. We'll go ahead and take another break here on the Saturday Sports Countdown.
Hi, this is Brian Bice with Bice Motors. With our all-star lineup of Dodge trucks, Jeep, SUVs, and Chrysler cars, we offer the area a team dedicated to making your next vehicle purchase a positive experience. Our sales team offers competitive pricing, and we back up all sales with a service department second to none. Bice Motors also offers the area's best selection of pre-owned vehicles. Visit Bice Motors at 2133 Cherokee Road in Alexander City.
Guaranteed lowest price. Buy it at Bice Motors.
You already know the power and reliability of a Mahindra tractor. Get ready to meet their ATV and UTV lines. Haul more and tow more. Do more. Reaching speeds up to 60 miles an hour. Models have a 12-inch ground clearance and the ability to haul up to 1,200 pounds. There's a Mahindra utility vehicle and a model specifically to get the job done. Test drive today at Lake Martin Tractor and Outdoor. Serving Tallapoosa, Coosa, Clay, and Talladega counties. 256-392-3613.
Hi, I'm Scott Blake.
I'm Angie Richardson, and we are the loan team here at Movement Mortgage.
Whether you're a first-time home buyer or you've gone through the process before,
our mission is to help you move forward with the purchase of your future plans. Call me at 256-397-2771.
or call me at 256-794-1003.
Scott Blake, NMLS number 527945. Angie Richardson, NMLS number 216556. Movement Mortgage supports equal housing opportunity, NMLS number 39179. For licensing information, please visit NMLSConsumerAccess.org.
Hey guys, this is Nate Paz with Airport Motors.
I'm Connor Branch with Fairway Auto Brokers in Opelika, Alabama.
And this is your first ever Lake Martin Summer Car Blitz.
That's right, Lake Martin. Airport Motors and Fairway Auto Brokers is teaming up for the very first Lake Martin Summer Car Blitz. Make sure to check out either website for the very best selection of pre-owned luxury trucks, SUVs, and sedans in East Alabama. Get pre-approved in minutes online and make sure to use the keyword Summer Blitz in the comment section for $500 off internet price. That's keyword Summer Blitz.
Castelluccio Fine Italian Dining in downtown Alexander City is rapidly becoming the region standard for Italian cuisine, as well as hand-cut filet mignon, fresh Gulf seafood, and the area's best Italian import wine selection. We offer true old-world charm with unmatched hospitality. Like Castelluccio Fine Dining on Facebook to keep up with daily lunch and dinner specials. Also new, we offer catering for your family and small business, so call and order. Castelluccio, downtown Alexander City, where the only thing that rivals the flavor is the dining experience.
You've dreamed about the perfect house, a place to call your own, and a place to not only stretch out, but to grow. Auto Owners protects your house because to you, it's home. That's simple human sense.
Happy to help, man. I was just over there talking to myself anyway.
Scott, you and I had a conversation a few weeks back that I wanted to address again and see if you can add a little bit more to what we talked about then, because I can't get my head around all that's going on with the NIL and the collective bargaining that goes with the collectives trying to get players that sign with schools that are part of schools to sign in with the collective, and that collective helps them find what their value is. If, say, someone wants you to attend, say, a birthday party, or it's wild that we're even talking all this, but it is what it is. Auburn, Alabama, Nick Saban comes out a couple of weeks ago and pretty much says, I don't like the direction this is going. I don't think all of y'all understand how much it's going to separate the haves from the have-nots. But, and this is not verbatim, this is the way I took it. But if this is what y'all want to do, then okay. We at Alabama just aren't going to back up and let everybody catch up with us. No, we're going to go do that better than everybody else too. And I think he was just kind of laying the groundwork. So here we go. Y'all want to pay $30 million for a signing class, Jimbo Fisher? Good deal. Pay your $30 million. Now we're going to go play the game how everybody else is playing it, and y'all already know that we play it better than everyone. Is that kind of the sense that you got from what Nick Saban said a few weeks ago?
I think that sums it up pretty nicely. I mean, first off, I will say I do not think that the Texas A&M model is going to be sustainable, because a lot of the people who your high-end boosters are probably who's funneling in the majority of those types of funds. So what it does is two things. One, even though Jimbo has the massive buyout, it puts immense pressure on the head coach to be successful. Two, if you are a player who was guaranteed, which is against what the NIL, the spirit of NIL is not supposed to be this way. You're not supposed to use it to say, come to our school. Now, we can pay you your market value or compensate you based on what your market value is once you get here, but we can't structure $4 and $5 million deals, which is what's happening. But when those kids aren't successful, and I don't care how much money you have, if I've given $500,000 for 4 or 5 different players and I've got $2.5 million attached to these players and they're not playing, that's the first thing. They're going to have to play. Even if they're good or not, they're going to have to play. And then secondly, if they're not that good, now I've just wasted my money. So you're going to start losing those. So I think the best and most sustainable model is creating an opportunity for I'm going to say the Scott Hardys, because I've been saying the Harvey Updikes, but that's not the appropriate thing to say. Your lower level fans who maybe aren't, big time boosters, but want to be involved in the program and have that spirit of commitment of wanting to make sure that they have some type of tie in what's happening with university athletics. That's the route to go. Looking at lower level donors and getting 15,000 of those instead of trying to look at 15 or 20 guys to help supplement an entire class. But saying all that, you're starting to see Auburn in recent weeks has announced you're starting to see more player-led collectives or NIL clubs where the players, you can go directly to the players. So it's becoming more of a marketplace for brands and businesses to be able to interact with these players. But ultimately still for the future of college athletics and the route that it's going, these collectives are not going anywhere. And as the NCAA continues to lose more and more of its legitimacy, it's going to make it more and more tougher for them to be able to enforce any of these rules. So if there's nothing If it's the Wild Wild West, then schools like Alabama, Ohio State, Georgia are going to destroy everybody else because they were already ahead of you anyway. So it just boils down, I think, to having a structure in place that allows you to be as competitive as possible. And NIL is front and center right now for what recruits are going to want to talk about when they come for a visit.
So Jason Campbell, the group that he's over, is the head of that collective for Auburn.
He's over football. I'm going to say general manager for football, I think is what his title is. The original, and there's been a little shakeup possibly from some things I've heard, but the original person who started it and founded it was Rick Davison, former baseball player at Auburn and heavy ties to the athletic department, and has worked with athletes previously regarding these things. So he creates a collective. The collective was designed to be able to be a conduit between brands, businesses, and fans to monetize the name, image, and likeness of these players. So you don't have to commit, or you don't have to be a part of the collective in order to have an NIL deal. But it provides you a safety net, especially the way that Auburn was doing it. It provides a safety net, one, to make sure that you're not underselling what your name, image, and likeness is, and then two, making sure you don't get stuck with some crappy deal. So what their job was is say, all right, and like On3 is doing a great job of this, is these NIL valuations. And so the way that the legislation and interim law that's set up for the NCAA is, the players, you can't just pay somebody to be on the team. Like if you're on the roster, I just can't give you some money. But if you're worth $4,000, if that's what they think your value is, then we can compensate you for that. But if you're, Arch Manning and it's $2.5 million, then we can compensate you for that as well. So it has to be based on your market value. And a lot of these schools, it's going to happen. Miami just had their big breweries, their biggest booster as it relates to NIL, just had an investigation or an inquiry and conversation with the NCAA over the past week. They're going to, at some point, stop these folks from just giving you money to come play, because it's not intended to be pay for play, which is what it is right now. And until there is some type of restrictions in place, it's going to be very difficult to rein this back in. So the NCAA lost all of its power ultimately when they didn't do it in the front end. It's going to be hard to retroactively punish somebody for something that was not against the law.
We're going to go ahead and take a break. We'll come
Sorry,
back.
I know it was a lot.
No, we're about to do a whole nother segment on it, because I'm learning as you talk, and I'm sure a lot of people out there, as I'm sitting here just staring at you when you're talking, because most of what's coming out of your mouth, the normal fan like myself does not understand the business concepts that are going on to be able to funnel the money to these guys like Texas A&M did. We're all smart enough to realize that Texas A&M did something last year that a lot of the rest of us didn't do. Okay, I think we can all agree with that. I mean, we know and agree that Jimbo Fisher was a good recruiter at Florida State, and we don't know if he did it on the up and up. I'm sure it wasn't completely on the up and up. I don't think hardly any of them are on the up and up. So I'm not really throwing darts at him for that. But I will say that we all knew that Texas A&M did something last year that the rest of us have got to figure out. Now, what is that they do? And that's starting to come out. And will some of these other programs be able to do it, namely Auburn, with the two of us talking, and we'll have Luke Robinson on at 8 o'clock, and he can talk about what's going on with Alabama when it pertains to recruiting, because they aren't sitting there at number one right now. Is that fair to say? I mean, they are not loading the wagon right now when it comes to recruiting. I think they will, but I think it's going to take a different angle than what they've done in years past, and I think they're working towards that, and there's no part of me that believes Nick Saban won't figure it out, so I'm not questioning that at all, but I am looking and seeing that it's not quite what it's been in years past. We'll go ahead and take another break here on the Saturday Sports Countdown.
Whether it's Lake Martin, Lay Lake, or Logan Martin, boaters from all over the state of Alabama come to Alex City Marine, just off Highway 280 in Alexander City, Alabama, because it's worth the drive. With the best deals on unbeatable Suzuki outboards, Manitou and Landau Tritoons, and a great pre-owned inventory while they last. Alex City Marine is the pros the locals know. And no matter where you're from, when you're here, you're local to us. Alex City Marine, just off Highway 280 in Alexander City, Alabama. AlexCityMarine.com.
WOTM is the television provider for all Alabama High School Athletic Association championship events and special programs. WOTM is your home for the Super 7 football, state finals basketball, baseball and softball state championships, the AHSAA weekly show, and WOTM also produced the first ever football playoff show, Super 7 preview show, and reclassification reveal show. Your exclusive home for all things AHSAA is WOTM. Contact your local cable provider to request WOTM to your channel lineup.
You don't have to ask who, what, or why. Who's Diner is the go-to place for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Conveniently located at the corner of Highway 22 and 280 in Alex City. Who's Diner offers the best meals and the best deals in town. Try our fresh, made-from-scratch pancakes, chicken salad, Philly cheesesteak, or the Who Burger. It doesn't get any better than who? Who's Diner, of course, on the corner of Highway 22 and 280. Who's hungry?
Fast, fresh, and friendly. That's the Allen Brew Market mission to our customers on the go. Allen Brew Markets of Talladega County fuel your vehicle and you with the best coffee, drinks, snacks, and food so you can get your day on the fast track. Allen Brew Markets are always convenient with Sylacauga locations on Main Avenue, Highway 280, and Old Birmingham Highway. Allen Brew Markets has everything for the family on the go, and we're always brewing up great specials. Fast, fresh, and friendly. Our guarantee to you.
The same professionals you've trusted with your urgent care is now your primary health provider, Main Street Family Care. We provide annual physical exams as well as monitoring health conditions such as high blood pressure, diabetes, asthma, and more. All major insurances accepted, Medicaid, Medicare, and have self-pay options to accommodate everyone. See us in Alex City, just across from Walmart. Your care is our primary concern.
Main Street Family Urgent Care. Heal better, feel better fast.
Why is Sarah Automotive Group on Highway 280 in Sylacauga the place for the best deals on your new ride? 3 compelling reasons. 1. With 3 full new car dealers on one lot, you get the best in comparison and incentives on Fords, Hondas, and Nissans. Unmatched selection. 2. Sarah pays over market value for your trade to maintain East Central Alabama's best pre-owned vehicle selection and sales. And 3. The Sarah Automotive price won't be beat and delivers lower payments and huge value on your next buy. Shop online or on Highway 280 in Sylacauga.
Welcome back to the Sports Blitz Saturday Sports Countdown. We got our good friend Luke Robinson on the phone with us now, and it's right on time, Luke. We just had a segment where we talked about NIL, and Scott knows more than the average man when it comes to that, and you and I have talked a lot about it on camera and off about the changes that are coming down the line. I'll let you jump in here from an Alabama standpoint. Nick Saban had some comments a few weeks back that was pretty much around the lines of, if this is how y'all want it, this is how we're going to play it, and we're not just going to lay back and not be successful with what's going on at Texas A&M. Is that pretty much the way that you read into Nick Saban's comments as well, Luke?
Oh, definitely. But he said some other things, too, and I think the other things he said, when he elaborated, made a lot of sense as well. And, again, maybe I'm reading a little too much into this, but I think that one of the things – I've said a gazillion times everywhere I go on a show, Nick Saban's greatest attribute is managing egos. I mean, when you have a team full of alphas like Alabama does, it's very difficult to get some of those alphas who aren't necessarily the team leaders to get in lockstep with the team goals. And it's very easy. You know, if you go back to 2010 Auburn, there was a team leader in Cam Newton, and then there was his right-hand man in Nick Fairley. And everybody else was a private. You know, everybody else was a soldier. Those two guys were the leaders. And so it's pretty easy when you have one team leader and a guy that is right beside him sort of helping clean things up that needs to be. You can say, hey, Cam, go handle your business. And that's why somebody like Gene Chizik, who's not a great coach, is able to win a national championship. Now, if something had happened to Cam Newton that season, that whole thing would have fallen apart. But let's say you have a team like the 2016 Alabama team. Now, I know they didn't win the national championship. They lost it on the last second. Hunter Renfro catches a pass, lose to Deshaun Watson and Clemson. I get it. But that team was full of leaders. Minkah Fitzpatrick just became the highest paid safety in NFL history. All you have to do is look at the other players on that defense. That was an incredible defense. I mean, probably equal to this year's Georgia defense. The difference being that team didn't win a national championship. But Jonathan Allen's on that team. Reuben Foster's on that team. Minkah's on that team. You had Deron Payne's on that team. Go and look at the salaries of those guys from 2016 and that they're making in the NFL right now. And I mean, it's a ridiculous number. And you now in hindsight, I look back and go, how in the world do you get that many guys who are used to being the number one dude wherever they've ever played? How do you get them to be on the same page when, Randy, you know this, being in the business world, if you get 5 business leaders to be on some kind of business council, it's practically impossible to get them to agree on a certain path to take sometimes, because they're all used to doing it their way. And in their defense, their way has been successful. But when you get 5 of them in there and they all have the same sized ego, it's very difficult to get them all in the same direction sometimes. Whereas if you only have one guy that everybody knows is the man, then it's everybody sort of falls in line. My point being that I think one of the things Nick Saban was saying was, hey, I've been able to pull this off. I don't know that other schools are going to be able to pull some of this off when you go to A&M. Let's see how A&M does with 8 5-stars in one class. Let's see how that class comes together. I'm going to be willing to bet it doesn't come together as well. I mean, everybody's assuming Texas A&M is going to be a national championship contender based on talent, and I think that is partially true. But what happens when somebody has to be the leader in a certain game? What's going to happen then? I mean, you saw last year, Alabama-Auburn. Bryce Young had to be a leader. At the very end, he was like, okay, I got to take this thing over. And that's what he did. And everybody sort of looked at him. That was sort of a defining moment for him because all the Alabama's 5-stars had not played well until that moment. And he sort of took it over, and that's sort of his Heisman moment, right? Well, how's it going to be at Texas A&M? How is Jimbo Fisher going to wrangle in all these dudes to find out, okay, let's say it's a 5-star linebacker who is the best. Well, are the 5-star defensive linemen going to just follow his lead blindly from now on? Because they're used to being the hottest names in the recruiting world. And they've already signed these big, mega NIL deals. They may be like, I'm not following you. And all it takes is 1 or 2 sour apples in your team, in your locker room, to ruin a season. And I think Nick Saban is very worried about that happening a lot more now, because a lot of teams like the Texas A&M could be loaded with more talent based on signing these huge NIL deals. And that could be bad for the sport in the sense that, some of these other guys may be able to go somewhere on a traditional type year and maybe create their own path, but the allure of the money is so much that maybe they don't develop the way they should. And I know that's kind of that's a long, convoluted theory, but I really believe Saban is kind of on board with that. Like, hey, this isn't going to be good long term if this is the path we're going to go down. Number one, certain teams are going to stockpile even more than you think they're stockpiling now. And number two, it could really derail a lot of kids' careers. I believe that's where he's going with that.
And, Luke, you bring up some of those comments, and a lot of it had to talk about the parity of college football. And I'm with you. I do think that with the implementation of NIL, the rich are going to continue to get richer. But is there any concern that because everybody can compete with Alabama now in terms of recruiting because of the NIL, that there could be some loss of talent that ultimately prevents them from staying on the top of college football?
I mean, there's eventually going to be a loss of talent somewhere or another, but I mean, Alabama's going to finish with a number 1, number 2, or number 3 class again this year. And I mean, again, just trying to keep it local, I just posted something on the chat where you guys are doing the show. I just looked it up really quickly because I felt like one of the things you said, Scott, was like, well, I don't think Auburn's been that far behind talent-wise. You know, there have been some other things, and it looks like this recruiting year is going to be a little better. You know, I just looked it up. I mean, it took 2 seconds to look this up. That this year, the top 10 players in Alabama, according to the 24/7 consensus, there's, I would say, 5 or 6 either committed to or leaning to Alabama. There's 1 committed to Clemson. There's 1 or 2 either leaning to or committed to Georgia now. There's another one that is probably leaning to Texas A&M. And Auburn's not mentioned. And
no,
so
hold on, Luke. I want to clarify.
You would think this NIL thing would help Auburn because they've got some big-time boosters. Auburn's got some dudes that are boosters. They got some money. So why isn't it helping anymore? That would be my first question. Or is it, you know, it seems to be helping maybe in basketball, but why isn't it helping in football? It doesn't make a lot of sense. So maybe we overestimate some of this to a degree. Maybe it still is about the coaching a little bit. Maybe you still need to have a relationship or something like that. I don't know. But one other thing I looked up very quickly, in the last 5 years, where, Scott, you said, you know, Auburn hadn't been that far behind in talent.
No. Hold on, Luke. Hold on. I do want to clarify. I hope that's not what came across, because I think the point I was trying to make was if you finish 12th and 13th in recruiting, 20th like you did last year, at some point, even if you had those top 10 classes, now you're starting to see the fruits of those recruiting classes, which is why the talent level and depth of the roster isn't where it should be, because you finished so poorly, and especially as it relates to the SEC. Other teams, you're 7th or 8th, 9th in the conference. Missouri and Kentucky finished ahead of Auburn in recruiting last year. So you're going to see that reflected. So I hope I hope that wasn't misinterpreted, because it has not been good. It has not been good.
No, I think but I guess my point is it's been even worse than we thought. And I don't know why I hadn't looked this up in the past. Maybe this is a stat everybody knows and I just didn't. But Auburn's had 17 guys drafted in the last 5 years. That's not awful, but I would say it's pretty bad by Auburn standards. I don't know what Auburn's draft percentage per class is or whatever, but it sure seems like to me Auburn should have, and they've only had 2 first-rounders. One of them being Derek Brown, one of them being Noah Igbenogany. They were both in the same class. I would say Derek Brown has performed, you know, right up where his expectations were, and Noah Igbenogany has not. Meanwhile, I forget Alabama for a second, but they've had 19 first-rounders in that same period. But forget them for a second because they've been the standard. But LSU has had something like 13 first-rounders and a lot more draft picks. So even when LSU doesn't have great coaching or great leadership, you know, they had one good year under Ed Orgeron, which was a fantastic, amazing year. Everybody says it's one of the top 5 years in college football history, and I agree with it. But it's just like what I was saying, that if you have enough talent, sometimes you can overcome it. But the other thing is that you still got to have some leadership in there somewhere. There's this great combination that leads to success. It's not just talent. It's not just coaching. It's not just schedule luck. It's so many things. And that's why, to me, the Nick Saban's consistency is so incredibly remarkable. I mean, people talk about, you know, well, he's only good because he's a good recruiter. And you know how hard it is to win the way he's been winning over the last 15 years? It's incredible. And so I think everybody keeps believing, hey, anybody can do this if we just recruit. But there's so much more to it.
Luke, some good news. Let's roll it around just a little bit. Talk some basketball. Some good news as far as scheduling for basketball with Alabama this week passing along. I think it's with the Knight Eady group out of Birmingham.
I assume you're talking about the Gonzaga game?
Yeah, that's it's kind of an event that is starting. It's got a name associated with it. Just fill everyone in. I kind of saw it on the peripheral. I didn't know exactly what was going on there.
Yeah, everybody knew Gonzaga was coming back, and it was announced a couple of months ago that it'd be in Birmingham. I think they finally set the date for it, which is great. And I love it. This schedule Alabama has put together is murderer's row again. And, It's almost too tough. I think last year's schedule, which was incredibly hard, was probably ended up being somewhat of the team's downfall, because while they did really well on the front end, I think that the grind of it took a toll on them as they entered the SEC season. But I do like playing tougher teams rather than not playing tougher teams. Alabama has done it both ways. I mean, under Mark Gottfried, we'd play North Sand Rock, we'd play Goodwater, we'd play any high school team we could find to try and improve our record for a long time, until the NCAA selection committee basically told us, hey, if you don't start improving your schedule, you ain't getting in this thing. I don't care how you do it in the SEC. Well, Godfrey then eventually changed his tune to a degree. Anthony Grant, I thought, did an okay job trying to schedule. Same thing with Avery Johnson. But Nate Oates has come in and said, I'm going to play Gonzaga. I'm going to play I looked at CBS's top 25 for next year. I think Alabama plays 6 of the top 7 teams in their early preseason top 25. And they have the possibility of playing all 7 because they could play North Carolina in a tournament in Portland that they play in November. So I appreciate that, and I like it. But it does make it hard, and it will reflect on your record. Like instead of being 12-2 in the preseason, pre-conference schedule, you might be something more like 9-5. Which, hey, I mean, if you're 9-5 with a win over Gonzaga, that's a pretty big deal.
Luke, last question. I mean, is this a talented Alabama basketball squad? Are there a lot of expectations for next year? I mean, it's an odd group, I guess. I think it's kind of a mixture of people that you've thrown together. I don't know exactly what we're going to get. Your thoughts?
Well, I'm optimistic, but I think that the general Alabama fan, whereas right now the general Auburn fan, I think, is like, hey, whatever Bruce Pearl puts out there, we'll be satisfied with because we know what they'll be. I don't think the average Alabama fan trusts Nate Oates like that just yet. They took a step back from the SEC championship last year. I do feel like Nate Oates is unfairly judged to a degree because he did win the SEC and won the SEC tournament in the same year, which is something that rarely happens even for Kentucky these days. So I felt like that was nice. And then next year, they took a step back last year. There's no doubt about it. They were underachieving. But they did make the NCAA tournament. And I think that's always the measure, right, of a basketball team. Now, Kentucky and Kansas may measure them differently, but as far as Alabama and Auburn go, it's all about, did you make the tournament? And I think that they did make the tournament, so that's a positive. I feel like they'll make the tournament again. In a way, I could make the argument they're even more talented. That being said, one thing I'm a big proponent of is chemistry. And this is a bunch of newcomers or a bunch of dudes that, like Namari Burnett, who didn't play last year, even though I think he's very, very good, and he's been on campus. Well, he hadn't played in a year. So, I mean, I don't know how he's going to gel with some of these other guys. I'm cautiously optimistic, I guess is the way to put it. I think this team will be fine. I think they'll make the tournament. I've seen them in bracketologies listed anywhere from number 3 to number 6, and I think that's about where they'll be, probably around a number 5 seed.
Well, we'll be watching. I'm just glad that we've got something outside of football from time to time to communicate about. And Auburn and College World Series and Alabama baseball had a good end to the season. And a lot of people argued that they should have been in the tournament rather than Ole Miss. And then Ole Miss makes it through fairly easily to set up this matchup with Auburn tonight. So it is what it is in the SEC, and we appreciate your conversation this morning, Luke.
I'll say this real quickly. I didn't believe Alabama should be in the NCAA tournament. I didn't believe Ole Miss should be in. If Alabama's not in, I didn't think Ole Miss should be in. I've already laid out that groundwork. Alabama swept them in Oxford, all these other things, went further in the tournament. But wouldn't it be something if Alabama had made it in versus Ole Miss, and somehow Alabama had caught fire the same way the Rebels had, and the last game in Omaha tonight was Alabama against Auburn? That'd be something, huh? Would
be shocking for those of us that have been following baseball the last 20 years. But it does feel like we're getting closer to that, and maybe some of this NIL and potentially more coaches on the staff and some other things that are coming down the line means good for baseball here in the state. I think it will. I think that's about to happen. Luke, we appreciate it, buddy.
Hope so. I got it.
Thank you, Luke Robinson. We'll go ahead and take another break here on the Saturday Sports Countdown.
A&M Plumbing, A&M Plumbing, service at its best when you need it most.
From the smallest drippy faucet to drain cleaning to water heater replacement to gas lines to total systems replacement, A&M Plumbing handles it all. Visit amplumbing.net today for the experienced, licensed, and insured pros at A&M Plumbing.
A&M Plumbing, A&M Plumbing, service at its best when you need it most.
They say we live in an age of big data, where computers and fancy algorithms are supposed to know you best. But at Country Financial, we know helping you own your future requires, well, something much bigger. Contact your local Country Financial representative and start planning for your future with a personal touch.
Okay, somebody's not wearing their seatbelt.
I don't wear seat belts. Might wrinkle my shirt.
That's okay. I'm sure they can iron it before the funeral.
What funeral?
Yours. Almost 70% of people who die in car crashes aren't wearing a seatbelt.
Okay. There. You happy?
Just happy to be alive.
Seatbelts. It's hard to live without them. Drive safe, Alabama. A message from your Alabama Department of Transportation.
Life is a sequence of little successes. The story of my Southern Union success began the day I walked on campus, making new friends, mastering a new skill, reaching a personal goal, the encore performance, the first date, the internship, and now, soon, the dream job. That's the story of my Southern Union success. Register for classes and get ready to watch your Southern Union story come to life.
It's time to crank for bank. April 1st through July 4th, you'll be fishing Lake Martin for a chance to win big. With a $100 registration, you'll be fishing for $1 million from Big Fish Real Estate Group and Point Broadband, a 2022 Bass Cap Bass Boat from Russell Marine, 2022 Skeeter Bass Boat from Ashley Outdoors, a 2022 Chevy truck from Lake Martin Cabinetry and Allen Embry Premier Chevrolet, or catch a $1,500 tagged fish. Brought to you in part by Dunning Roofing, Lake Martin Tourism, Mortgage Pro, Fishing Chaos, and Lake Broadcasting. Visit Crank, the number 4 bank.com for details.
Welcome back into the Sports Blitz Saturday Sports Countdown. It's the summer month, Scott. You and I, we do a few programs here and there together, and I really can't remember some of the topics that we've had the opportunity to discuss until we talk about them during the break. And one that we haven't discussed that I think is a couple of good ones, and we'll keep it here locally for a second, is Benjamin Russell hires a new head football coach. Smitty Grider comes after 18, 19 years where he's been head coach here in the state of Alabama. He's got a great record, 125 wins in his career. It's been at different places. I like that. He's built programs at different places. We covered him, you and I covered him extensively when he was at Park Crossing because you couldn't not cover Malik Cunningham and that crew at Park Crossing. I think his senior year they were 13-0 going into the semis and lost to Opelika in a 40 to mid-20s game there, and they scored a ton of points, like 550 to 600 points that year, if memory serves me correct. And Malik Cunningham's been great since he was moved on and played at Louisville. So he had great talent there at Park Crossing. And you and I called games for Benjamin Russell, I guess, 12, 14 years ago, and we lost a couple of games close to Beauregard, his Beauregard-led team. So I don't know him personally all that well, but I know what I've seen his teams do, and they played physical football, and they've been well-disciplined, and they've been good teams. So I'm proud that we got him, and I hope he has the same amount of success here.
Before I speak on what I think will happen from what's happening on the field and what he'll be able to do, most important thing that I'm looking for in a head coach is somebody who, one, is trying to shape young men to be great men, and what's your community involvement and engagement as it relates to your position. He's been here less than a month, and I've seen him. There's been several community events, including Project 412, which was a student-led service project, and he's had his guys there. He's been involved, and so he hit the ground running. There was a renaming of Laura Pool last week, and Freddie Walkoff Pool now, he was there for that. He was here 2 days as the head coach, and that was that. So I think that he understands how integral the success of Benjamin Russell athletics, specifically football, and the tie to the community and having that support, how that's going to impact your program. So I want to say that first. I think that was great to get going there. The rest, people know his record and where he's been, how successful he's been, and he's built programs, rebuilt programs. And outside of Coach Martin, and he probably wouldn't like to hear me say this, but one of my favorite coaches ever was Spence McCracken. I loved him, and my dad was from Opelika, so I always heard all these stories, but he comes from that pedigree. So you know what you're getting, and I think he fits the mold of our community and the type of coach that we would like leading our program.
Well, very good point. Coached under Coach McCracken, I think, for 8 years. Knew the rivalry that we had during that stretch. I said this a couple of weeks ago, but I'll say it again. It's hard to explain how passionate our two fan bases in Ellick City and Opelika were against one another in the 90s when I grew up, say from 90 to 2000. We played 11 times. Opelika won 6, we won 5, and the difference in the score during those 11 years was 167 to 166.
Wow. I don't know if I've heard that.
Have you not heard me? Yeah, I've done that on broadcast for us, and I went back and I looked, and because it got away from us, you know, kind of when you got in school, and y'all had very talented groups, but, you know, the population change made it very tough. Y'all dropped to 5A, which made it very tough to stay in a group with Opelika that was one of your mid-tier 6A schools as far as enrollment numbers, and they had us by several. I'm not giving us an excuse, but it changed. Our two communities changed a lot, so it's really hard to explain to new kids how important that week was and how much of a rivalry it was, and how much we respected Opelika but despised them equally as much. And they, for us, the same thing. And so he knew that, and he had been a part of a lot of those games, and I remember all of those games, and none of them were not last-second games or down to the last-second games, and packed crowds, and so that's important that you do know the dynamics of the community and what it can be when things are going successfully, and that's what we want here. And it's been a little bit of turmoil, and during turmoil, who stays on board and who gets off the bus is always part of what you need to watch for, and who can deal with it, and who accepts mediocrity and who doesn't. All of those things are important to communities like ours, and I think that we've gone out and gotten the best coach that we had the chance to get, and I want to make sure that he knows our community's behind him, and I know you and I will be too that will be behind him, but there will be a lot of other people behind him as well, and I do think it's great that he's out and about in the community, and it should be a fun year. He's got a talented group. This is not I say Danny Horn's as good a coach as I've ever been around. I love Coach Horn, love his family. He did a great job here. When he came to Ellick City, that poor man went 1-9 for 2 straight years, and there's never been a coach him up any better, and he went 1-9. And I watched those groups, and I apologize if you were part of those groups, but I broadcasted those games, and I knew for a fact that we were fighting an uphill battle from the moment the whistle sounded. And we fought, and we had a few pieces, but we didn't have enough of them to compete in where we were trying to compete in 6A at the time. That's not the case now. There's some talent. Now, I'm not saying we're as talented as Clay Chalkville and some others that we'll see in 6A, but nonetheless, it's still a talented group that has a chance to put together a good product.
Yeah, it really reminds me of Auburn to an extent. The frontline guys, I think, are as good as anybody we're going to play. It's what's your second string going to look like? What happens if an injury takes place? Do we have somebody that can replace them? Can we, have guys that play multiple positions? And the luxury that we do have is that there's a lot of talent on the top end of these classes, but some of your 9th grade class that's coming in, your freshman class, sophomore class, there's some building blocks that I think you could set the foundation for getting back to more consistency, and that's really all I'm looking for. I mean, obviously, I want to go to Jordan Hare or Bryant Denny and compete, or what's the Birmingham Stadium?
Yeah, Progressive.
Yeah, I mean, I want to go there, but being a realist, I understand that there's going to be some limitations to get into that point. But my entirety of my life, a quarter round matchup in the playoffs was at least the minimum guaranteed for a Benjamin Russell-led football team, and I want to get back to that. We have years of the last decade where, 4 straight 10-win seasons, multiple area championships. So it can happen, and I think these are some of the more this team is probably a little more talented than some of those teams that were going that had the 10-win team. So I think as a community, this is when we show how we are as people, is when things aren't going the very best, as you said, who stays on the raft and who gets off lets me know who's really was a supporter and who was just there because things were going well. And I think that Coach Grider and the kids that are in place and the staff and administration are going to do everything possible to make sure that they put a quality product on the field and one that we can be proud of.
To stay here locally before we take another break, you and I'll head over to a basketball camp that your uncle, our head basketball coach, Jeremy Freeman here at Benjamin Russell, who had the best season for really any athletic program that we had here at the school this past year. And he's got a lot of talent. He's got that whole squad coming back. But the thing I think he realizes is that, yes, he's got a talented squad there, but there's a lot of talented kids that are semi-obsessed with basketball in this community. It's been that way, but I think it was let go a little bit. I think that's fair to say that it was, from a youth standpoint, a city-led youth program maybe got away from us that's coming back, and I think it will point to a lot of wins to come. I do believe that, and I think this group that we've got there now is going to win, but the part of what all of us, and you got kid coming, and we don't want it to stop there. We want it to keep going, so I'm proud that the players are over there working with our kids this morning and the coaches, and I know that the kids enjoy that. I don't know about you. I enjoyed that. Anytime I had a chance to go and be around coaches and players that say I looked up to in the community, it meant a lot to me, and I think I always took something out of it because I paid a little bit more attention then than I normally would have if it wouldn't have been for that. So that's going on at the high school today. If you do have kids, by the way, I think you've got time. If you want to take your 7th, 8th, and 9th graders over, they'll be starting at 10:30. Maybe they're starting at 11. They're registering at 10:30, and we'll have our 3rd, 4th, and 3rd through 6th grade practicing this morning from 8:30 to 10:30 with the squad. So we'll head over there after this. More of the Sports Blitz Saturday Sports Countdown right after this.
Whether it's Lake Martin, Lay Lake, or Logan Martin, boaters from all over the state of Alabama come to Alex City Marine, just off Highway 280 in Alexander City, Alabama, because it's worth the drive. With the best deals on unbeatable Suzuki outboards, Manitou and Landau Tritoons, and a great pre-owned inventory while they last. Alex City Marine is the pros the locals know. And no matter where you're from, when you're here, you're local to us. Alex City Marine, just off Highway 280 in Alexander City, Alabama. AlexCityMarine.com.
Sign Source is your local vendor for commercial and residential sign manufacturing and installation. We offer all kinds of lighted and non-lighted signage, from retail signs, LED message centers, event banners, vehicle wraps, the whole spectrum. We also offer service and repair on existing signs, as well as retrofitting to LED or installation of outsourced signage. We have the knowledge necessary to fulfill all of your signage needs in the short or long term. Visit signsourcenow.com to get started.
Heritage South Credit Union in Alexander City is your community credit union, and they have been for over 80 years. Heritage South Credit Union proudly serves Tallapoosa, Coosa, Lee, Chambers, Randolph, and Chilton counties. From checking to business accounts, to share savings to club accounts, to their kids club and investments. Visit them online at myhscu.com. Heritage South Credit Union, your community credit union for 80 years. Federally insured by NCUA. Now is the best time to sell your current home, as it's a seller's market, meaning that on average you can get up to 96% of your asking price. Who's the most aggressive and most experienced to help you sell your home?
Hi, I'm Rhonda Gaskins, broker, Century 21 Lake Area Realty in the Lake Martin area. We are getting a 96% return on our listing price, the sales price in this area. Call me today and let me go to work for you. 256-749-3644.
L&G Ad Agency is the go-to vendor for all your digital and print marketing needs. We have in-house production for all projects, including graphic design, web design, social media marketing, videography, and print marketing. Our video production is up to industry standard with modern 4K cameras and drone capabilities. We pride ourselves in client-committed relationships, and every project is personalized to your needs. Visit lmgadagency.com for a free quote today. Let us tell your story.
GillsOpelika.info. Get pre-approved in minutes online at GillsOpelika.info for a pre-owned car, truck, or SUV from Gills Auto Sales, 1430 Gateway Drive in Opelika.
Welcome back into the Sports Blitz Saturday Sports Countdown. I think we got a caller on the line. Caller, you're on the Saturday Sports Countdown.
Hey, guys, what's going on?
Oh, glad to have you, Brett. Perfect timing. I'll let you jump in real quick. We talked a little locally just a second ago about Coach Grider being here and hitting the ground running and some things that are going on here in the local community. You're heavily involved as well, if maybe you want to jump in there.
Yeah, I know that unfortunately I'm out with a conference this weekend, but Project 412 through First United Methodist Church at Alex City. Jimmy Yates really is the guy that had this vision, and it kind of was born out of their mission work that they've done for 25 plus years of going through the Appalachian Service Project, where every summer around this time of year we take a group of people to wherever the need is, whether it be in Tennessee, Kentucky. They've gone all over the Southeast, primarily in those areas, in the mountainous areas of Kentucky and Tennessee and North Carolina, to help with projects. It can range from rebuilding porches and building wheelchair ramps to re-roofing a house, whatever's been determined. And you go into some of these communities that these people just need help. And, and Jimmy, through all of that, really looked around and said, hey, we could do that in our own communities around here. That, I think this would be a good opportunity for some of our kids, that can't travel and can't take a trip during the summer because of things. Maybe could take 2 or 3 days to help our citizens around here. And that's what he did. And, I know our athletic teams at Benjamin Russell, there's so many volunteers too on top of it that have jumped in to help. And I've been keeping up with it and seeing the great work that's going on to help our people in our community. So proud of this, and it's just getting started. I know that they'll build on this, and the vision for that Jimmy talked about with me is that hope to have this on a regular basis, maybe not just once a year, but on a regular basis to help people that are in need. You don't have to travel to another state. We've got people right here in our own community that need our help. So I think that's a huge deal. It's getting our kids active. It gets them involved, and it wakes them up to see, what some people have to deal with right here in our backyard that they may not be aware of. So it's just good all the way around. And then I know at night they had Wesley Steiner, a linebacker at Auburn. It's going to be a starter this year for Brian Larson. Came and kind of gave his testimony at the Arbor the other night, and everything I've heard from everybody said he just did a phenomenal job, even to the point where somebody was an Alabama fan said, look, he touched me so much, I'm pulling for Wesley Steiner in Auburn this year. So that's the things that our kids need to hear, and I'm glad that Coach Grider and Coach Brooks and all of our athletes that have been available are involved with this project.
Yes, and we'll continue to pass along positive news, way you can support, and way you can get involved in that as we move on. Brett, big day for us Auburn fans. Auburn playing in their second College World Series in 3 years. You just can't say enough good things about Butch Thompson and what he's doing with this baseball program.
Just fortunate to have Butch Thompson at Auburn, what he's been able to do since he's been here. And, baseball's been a center of our conversation on a lot of shows over the last several years about what both Auburn and Alabama have to deal with not being on an equal playing field with Mississippi State and Ole Miss and LSU and Florida and Tennessee, Georgia, basically everybody in the conference outside of Alabama because of funding issues. Butch Thompson has somehow been able to surpass those hurdles and get Auburn to an elite level. And Auburn, more times than not, have been going deep into postseason with multiple super regional appearances now. Again, two World Series in the last 3 played seasons. He's just got this program. This was another year where Auburn was picked last in the West, and he's got them at the top of the conference. And a winning record in conference play, which you and I have talked about, Randy, is very hard to do in this conference. I talked about it a few weeks ago. Auburn really needs to look at locking Butch Thompson down the way they did Bruce Pearl. We're not going to find anybody better. Nobody's going to find a better coaching staff than what we have right now at Auburn. He finds a way to go out and get great players to buy into his system, and obviously he knows how to coach them up because our pitching staff does a tremendous job every year, and they get better as the year goes along. So lock Butch Thompson down. South Carolina's highly active right now in finding a head coach. There's even rumors of Florida getting rid of O'Sullivan and maybe looking for a coach. So there's going to be sharks in the water. Auburn needs to go ahead and do due diligence and lock him down because now with NIL and all the different stuff, Auburn's going to even the playing field with recruiting. It's going to even get better. So go ahead and lock Butch Thompson down. That way he's here for a long time.
Brett, you bring up recruiting, and Auburn has several visitors in this weekend, and hopefully, trying to secure some of those guys for the long haul. Just what are your thoughts on what Auburn needs to do to really solidify themselves in getting a good class, and ultimately how that may impact the future of Brian Harsin?
Well, I told you guys, I really feel like Brian Harsin can coach. I think we saw that this past year. I read, I don't know if you guys saw, every year Lindy's puts out the anonymous coaches' comments about each team. And the anonymous coach comment about Auburn was they think things are totally in disarray. Now, this is coming from another coach within the conference. They think everything's in total disarray. He looks at the roster. He doesn't see what Auburn's usually got on their roster. He said he doesn't think Auburn has 10 solid players on their roster right now that can compete in this league. That's a mouthful. And I know that may be a stretch, but this is the perception of what Auburn is right now. And he was talking about how Auburn usually has, a really solid roster, solid players, may not all be 4 and 5 stars, but they've got their fair share, and he's concerned. He said, look, if you're Auburn, you got to be concerned with where you are right now. I think that's the most urgent thing, Scott. I think trying to build this roster back to where it can be competitive in this league. I think Auburn can be okay this year, but it's past this year is what should concern everybody. I would rather trade off this year of being average to mediocre to know that we're going to be getting, a lot better players coming down the line. But I think Brian Harsin's between a rock and a hard place with that. How do you get better players? How do you get them to buy in? Because all you hear people say is, well, I need to see results. I need to see that Auburn can win before I buy in. Well, you got to have players to win. So I think he's in a very difficult situation. I want Brian Harsin to work because the last thing we need to do is be on the market for a new football coach. But I think he's got a really, really tough battle ahead of him.
Definitely does, and it's one that we'll be watching. Brett, y'all have a good trip. Be careful coming back. We'll see you next week, okay?
All right, thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Thank you. That's Brett Pritchard up against another break here on the Saturday Sports Countdown.
Brubaker Motors in Montgomery is the largest and fastest growing used car dealership in the River region. You can absolutely get a better buy at Brubaker. It's better at Brubaker.com.
Brubaker,
You can absolutely get a better buy at Brubaker.
BREWBAKER. BREWBAKER.com.
It's better at Brubaker.com.
At CNT Electric, our clients are our priority. For the safety and security of your family and home, our technicians are professionally trained, drug tested, background checked, and wear uniforms with name tags. We're proud to have served the Elk City, Dadeville, and Lake Martin areas for the past 10 years. Give us a call at 256-234-0007 for all your electrical service and repair needs, or visit us on the web at www.cntelectricllc.com and spell out the word "and."
For almost 10 years, there's been the go-to place for tires and automotive repair, Right Tire. Right Tire sells all makes of tires for anyone's vehicle and anyone's budget, and with Right Tire, you always get the right prompt service with the right price. Right Tire also can handle all of your bumper-to-bumper automotive needs with certified brake service, alignment, oil changes, tune-ups, and so much more. So when you want tires and automotive done right, see Right Tire on West Fort Williams in the heart of Sylacauga. Right work, right price, every time.
Life is a sequence of little successes. The story of my Southern Union success began the day I walked on campus, making new friends, mastering a new skill, reaching a personal goal, the encore performance, the first date, the internship, and now, soon, the dream job. That's the story of my Southern Union success. Register for classes and get ready to watch your Southern Union story come to life.
Become a member of the Superior family. Superior GMC Cadillac, Superior Hyundai, or Superior Automotive Pre-Owned. Between our 3 dealers in East Central Alabama, we offer the superior selection and service for any buyer's needs. All with the personal touch of being locally family-owned and operated. Check out any of our dealers online, or our 3 great lots in Anniston on Quintard, or our pre-owned Superstore Pell City, and join the Superior family of value.
It's going to be a short segment here, 256-234-6221. We bounced it around quite a bit here. I did want to go back to a previous topic that we had a few segments back, Scott, and let you close out your thoughts on that. From your standpoint, from, kind of seeing the way that things are going, just give us a 30,000-foot view on how you see Auburn and Alabama doing as far as NIL collectives setting things up. Are we getting closer to being competitive with what the models are out there in the country, or is this thing still kind of moving?
I can't speak necessarily to Alabama, but the thought applies to them the same way. I do think that as Auburn fans, we're never going to, even with the high-end boosters that we have, we're never going to be able to compete holistically with everyone else, because you're consistently having to rely on 5 to 10 people to generate all this revenue for you. It's not sustainable. But as we talked about earlier, what makes Auburn such a special and unique place is the type of fan support that you receive. And I do think that there are a multitude of fans and supporters who would love to give $25, $30 a month, $5 a month to be able to have a piece of the success that is happening. I think what's going to make these collectives the most powerful is going to be the amount of money that you can generate consistently. One-offs are not going to be what makes you a successful program, like with A&M. We'll see if they can duplicate it. I mean, I know there's a lot of Texas money, and I get that, but I think if you're a school like Auburn, really looking at it from a political view, like as a campaign, I think that, everybody gets those emails where donate 5, donate 10, this, but I think that's really the route that Auburn needs to go, is really focusing on having more lower level donors and not being so reliant on your big-time donors because it's not sustainable. And as we get closer to football season, I think that you'll see some more traction as it relates to NIL in Auburn. It just hasn't been promoted the way that you would have hoped. But at the same time, these collectives began right during the time period when Bruce Pearl, when we didn't know what was going to happen with the investigation there. So if you're part of the compliance team, you got to be very careful, and you probably didn't allow some of these supporters to do certain things because you just got removed from having the NCAA over you. And I think that caused a lot of the heartburn for some of the people internally, was just that they weren't satisfied with what was going to take place without knowing that Auburn would be in trouble, especially after just getting, dismissed of all the things with Bruce Pearl.
It feels like a hard sell to sustain that I need X dollars in order. You see Coach Day come out from Ohio State, and he says, I need $13 million to keep this group together. That's what it's going to take, and we got to go get it. It feels like if you've got a group of boosters, let's even say there's 20 of them that give consistently X amount of dollars a year, that's a big number. It feels like a harder sell that you're going to give that money to players rather than facilities or programs or buildings or, boxes or, all of those things. And I think that would feel like, to me, it'd be tougher at a place like Auburn than, say, Texas A&M to sell that.
What you just said is, I think, at a place like Auburn especially, what NIL has also done is you're starting to you're watering down the donor base. So you're asking for, scholarship fund money. You're also asking for facility upgrades. You're also asking for NIL participation. All right, that's why it's going to be important to not have to rely solely on your high-end donors and find some people who are willing to, some of their disposable income, let that be towards Auburn. But you're right, $13 million, if that's what a head coach at Ohio State is saying, then what do you think it's going to take for somebody like Auburn to be competitive when we're not only competing against the same players from a high school perspective, but from the transfer portal as well? So it's evolving daily, and I think that Auburn will be fine long term, but they're going to have to just adjust to what the status quo is now. And if everybody else is doing it, then so will you.
Go ahead and take another break here on the Saturday Sports Countdown.
Hi, this is Brian Bice with Bice Motors. With our all-star lineup of Dodge trucks, Jeep, SUVs, and Chrysler cars, we offer the area a team dedicated to making your next vehicle purchase a positive experience. Our sales team offers competitive pricing, and we back up all sales with a service department second to none. Bice Motors also offers the area's best selection of pre-owned vehicles. Visit Bice Motors at 2133 Cherokee Road in Alexander City.
Guaranteed lowest price. Buy it at Bice Motors.
WOTM is the television provider for all Alabama High School Athletic Association championship events and special programs. WOTM is your home for the Super 7 football, state finals basketball, baseball and softball state championships, the AHSAA weekly show, and WOTM also produced the first ever football playoff show, Super 7 preview show, and reclassification reveal show. Your exclusive home for all things AHSAA is WOTM. Contact your local cable provider to request WOTM to your channel lineup.
I'm Jimmy Goree with Goree's Furniture. We would like to invite you to come shop our huge selection of furniture. But if you don't have time, we have over 2,000 items you can have shipped directly to your home. Go to GoreesFurniture.com, look for 48-hour quick ship. Shop, click, ship, it's just that easy. You can shop us here, or you can shop us online, only at Goree's Furniture.
Your express way to saving.
If you haven't been to Big B Barbecue in Alex City, then you're missing the best barbecue around. Big B has everything from the best pulled or chopped pork, chicken, and beef to cheeseburgers and grilled chicken salads. Bring your friends and family out for a great dinner and sit outside on our beautiful patio, or sit inside and enjoy your meal by the fireplace. So come in and join us and enjoy the best barbecue in the area only at Big B Barbecue, located on Highway 22 West in Alex City.
You want the best opportunity to be successful in life. You deserve that opportunity. Well, you just happens to be in our motto, central to you, central to your success. Your future is right now. Don't wait. Make your dreams a reality by enrolling at Central Alabama Community College. Register today at cacc.edu.
Welcome back into the Sports Blitz Saturday Sports Countdown. Got about 4 or 5 minutes left here in today's show. We've been all over the map. Scott, we've talked recruiting. We've talked NIL deals, which is so important to all of us to figure out if we're going to keep a competitive product out there on the field. We've talked College World Series a lot of the time, and we'll kind of close with that. It's just fun. I think back to the Final Four run. I think back to making it to the NCAA tournament. Consecutive years with basketball. Luke talked about it for Alabama basketball, and I totally agree with him. At a certain point, you'd like to have a championship contender, but I can almost argue that it's more important to have a consistent winner because it keeps you engaged. It keeps you as par. And right now with basketball, with Auburn and Alabama, we both feel pretty good that we're going to have a consistent winner. And now we're getting that with baseball, and maybe we get over the hump and win a championship. I sure hope we do, but I'm just so glad that we've got something to watch when it gets late in the season like tonight.
Yeah, I mean, you look back through the maturation of this show and the topics that have been discussed, and by April, I mean, it was football. There was no shoot by January most times. I mean, we were already talking about football.
Yeah.
And to see now that we're this deep into, getting ready for summer camp and fall camp, and we're still talking about baseball. And that's, I mean, even to Alabama's credit, we were talking about them too. Could they get in the tournament? So I think that we're just, as fans, it's exciting to not have to have all of your eggs in one basket. And that's not to say that we don't want to have successful football programs or a successful football program at Auburn. But it takes the sting away a little bit when you know that you have something coming down the line with Bruce Pearl, coming down the line with Butch Thompson. You're seeing it in the other sports as well. Gymnastics may have been the most highly, in terms of attendance, probably had the best attendance of any of the sports. So it's fun to see some other sports get some shine. And that's, again, not to say we don't want to – I mean, I hope Auburn goes 15-0 every year. But the likelihood as we continue down the future – basketball is probably going to be the sport that carries Auburn.
It's a wild thing to say, and I was going to close the program out with that because as I was looking through my Twitter feed, as we were talking a few minutes ago, I got to thinking, gosh, how this state has changed over, and we talk about it, but I don't talk about this enough. These play dates that go on in the summer, and how much high school sports have changed, and how much effort it takes to put a competitive product out there on the field and whatever you're doing, and how low it goes down. My feed is full of middle school play dates where they're playing 8 or 10 games and tournaments, and all of your major programs are getting after it consistently. And then you move up to the high school ranks, and I'm looking down, and there's HSA play dates going on, and I know your uncle in our group has already played 4 or 5 games this summer and competitive games against some of the better programs in the state, and how important that is. It's wild, man. It's a lot different. We did nothing with basketball when I was coming through in the summer. You worked out if your coach decided that you had to be part of the football workout group. You go and you work out then. If you had a sport that cared enough to want you to be a part of that. But now, you have X amount of time that you have with the basketball. You got X amount of time that you have with the baseball. Same with every other sport. It's making the product that much better. I will say that.
Yeah, because it's year-round now. And
yes.
And it has almost forced you to have to do that, because if not, from a competitive standpoint, you will get left behind if you're not doing the things that other teams are doing. And you don't have to do it exactly, but, these kids need as much exposure as possible.
Yeah, they definitely do, and they need to see what – if you're going to go in, I'll take our basketball program. I know we're up against the end of the show, but had a great run, made it to the regionals. One of the better records we have in a long time, but that's not where we hope the ceiling is. And to get to the ceiling, man, you just got to put that much more work into it next year. And when you know you got talent, you start getting confident enough to go put them in tough positions and tough situations. And sometimes that's going to mean losses that aren't going to be losses that you expected. But for the most part, I think it's going to pay dividends in the end. And I'm glad that we're doing it here. But I'm also glad as an AHSA member, a broadcaster here in the state, to watch the growth of certain sports here in this state in certain areas. And I think it's only going to be good for our programs, with Auburn and Alabama and all the other college programs that we cover here in the state of Alabama. I want to thank all of you, though, for tuning in for the last 15-plus years to the Saturday Sports Countdown. We'll continue to be here from 7 to 9 every Saturday morning. Can't thank John Kennedy and his crew enough here with Lake Broadcasting for all that they do, along with Vincent Early and WOTM and all that they do covering high school athletics at a premium here in this state. They do it as well as anyone, and we want to thank both of those groups. So for Scott Hardy, I'm Randy Lee saying thanks for tuning into the Saturday Sports Countdown.
Tails are wagging and pets are bragging about Zoom to Groom, Columbus, Phoenix City, and Smith Station. Zoom to Groom comes to you. It's mobile pet grooming from the comfort of your driveway. Schedule your appointment now online at zoomtogroom.net or by phone at 334-740-9909.
Hi, John. You have messages.
Not now, phone. I'm driving.
You know you want to text your friends.
Texting and driving is illegal. No distractions, period. People die that way. Eating, putting on makeup.
Scroll through your music?
Nope.
Your girlfriend just texted. She's bored.
Sorry, not worth dying for.
Good call. She seems a little clingy.
Don't text your life goodbye. Drive safe, Alabama. A message from your Alabama Department of Transportation.
Are you looking for something really good for lunch? Are you tired of the same old fast food? Well, go to Buck's. Get a meat and 2 sides or a meat and 3 sides for the best deal in town. Buck's always serves up the best food, including fried chicken, wings, hamburger steaks, catfish, shrimp, and yes, of course, the famous Buck Cheeseburger Basket. And Buck's has dinner specials too. So if it's your turn to cook dinner, Buck's will be glad to do it for you. We appreciate your business and look forward to serving you.
Whoever you are, wherever you race, hit the track like a champion. The YZ250F and the YZ450F Monster Energy Yamaha Racing Editions. Only from Yamaha.
Fast, fresh, and friendly. That's the Allen Brew Market mission to our customers on the go. Allen Brew Markets of Talladega County fuel your vehicle and you with the best coffee, drinks, snacks, and food, so you can get your day on the fast track. Allen Brew Markets are always convenient with Sylacauga locations on Main Avenue, Highway 280, and Old Birmingham Highway. Allen Brew Markets has everything for the family on the go, and we're always brewing up great specials. Fast, fresh, and friendly, our guarantee to you.
They say we live in an age of big data, where computers and fancy algorithms are supposed to know you best. But at Country Financial, we know helping you own your future requires, well, something much bigger. Contact your local Country Financial representative and start planning for your future with a personal touch.
Tails are wagging and pets are bragging about Zoom to Groom, Columbus, Phoenix City, and Smith Station. Zoom to Groom comes to you. It's mobile pet grooming from the comfort of your driveway. Schedule your appointment now online at zoomtogroom.net or by phone at 334-740-9909.
Fast, fresh, and friendly. That's the Allen Brew Market mission to our customers on the go. Allen Brew Markets of Talladega County fuel your vehicle and you with the best coffee, drinks, snacks, and food, so you can get your day on the fast track. Allen Brew Markets are always convenient with Sylacauga locations on Main Avenue, Highway 280, and Old Birmingham Highway. Allen Brew Markets has everything for the family on the go, and we're always brewing up great specials. Fast, fresh, and friendly, our guarantee to you.
They say we live in an age of big data, where computers and fancy algorithms are supposed to know you best. But at Country Financial, we know helping you own your future requires, well, something much bigger. Contact your local Country Financial representative and start planning for your future with a personal touch.
Tails are wagging and pets are bragging about Zoom to Groom. Columbus, Phoenix City, and Smith Station. Zoom to Groom comes to you. It's mobile pet grooming from the comfort of your driveway. Schedule your appointment now online at zoomtogroom.net or by phone at 334-740-9909.